Hello friends and welcome to today's Sutta class. We will start as usual with the Namo Tassa. Feel free to join if you like. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So, hello everyone and welcome to today's Sutta class. Before we start, I just wanted to let you know that I've been feeling quite unwell the last few days. So I was actually thinking about canceling today's class, but today I'm feeling a little bit better, so I thought might as well do the Sutta class. But I have picked a Sutta that is a little bit shorter than usual, and we might finish a little bit early today. And before anyone asks, it's not COVID and it's nothing serious. I just need to rest for a few days and I think I'll be fine. So yeah, but we'll maybe finish a little bit early today for that reason. And today I decided that we will read the Esukārī Sutta together. This is Majjhima Nikaya number 96. And this is a sutta that talks about service. So I think as Western people, many of us maybe have somewhat of an ambivalent relationship with the idea of service. And I think generally service has quite a positive connotation, like when we give community service, for example, or we do volunteer work. I think that is quite highly regarded also in Buddhist circles, but also generally in society, or there are civil servants who want to serve the community, serve the society. So giving service to one's country or giving service to one's society, I think that is generally quite a positive idea. But then when we talk about giving service to a specific person, so serving a specific individual, suddenly it becomes a bit more tricky. And suddenly many people feel a reluctance or an internal resistance to serving another person. And it seems to us that this is quite demeaning work. I think we don't really want to do it. It feels like we are somehow lower than the other person. It obviously creates a hierarchy. And sometimes we can feel a very strong internal resistance to serving a specific person. And of course, in Buddhism, service also is a very important quality. And especially the Buddha has set up the relationship between the Sangha and the lay people as a relationship of mutual service, where the Sangha members serve the community by being role models and by preserving the Dhamma and by living the Dhamma and teaching the Dhamma. And lay people serve the monastics by providing material support. And of course, since in Western countries we have a somewhat dysfunctional relationship with this idea of service, also the relationship between monastics and lay people can sometimes be quite dysfunctional. And that model that was envisioned by the Buddha doesn't work quite well in Western countries. Not in the same way as it works in Asian countries, for example, where people have a completely different relationship with this idea of service. And so today I have picked this sutta because it talks about service and different notions of service, the ideas that Brahmins had of what service is, and the idea, of course, that the Buddha has about what service is. And I've picked this sutta so that we can reflect on our own attitudes and maybe our own barriers that block us, or our own defilements that keep us from actually fully living this idea as the Buddha has envisioned it, of mutual service and mutual support. And so let's just read the sutta together and then see where this takes us. So I have put a link in the live chat to Bhante Suchata's translation, and I will be reading from Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. Thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then the Brahmin Esukārī went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe 4 levels of service. They prescribe the level of service towards a Brahmin, the level of service towards a noble, the level of service towards a merchant, and the level of service towards a worker. Therein, Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a Brahmin. A Brahmin may serve a Brahmin, a noble may serve a Brahmin, a merchant may serve a Brahmin, and a worker may serve a Brahmin. That is the level of service towards a Brahmin that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a noble. A noble may serve a noble, a merchant may serve a noble, and a worker may serve a noble. That is the level of service towards a noble that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a merchant. A merchant may serve a merchant, and a worker may serve a merchant. That is the level of service towards a merchant that the Brahmins prescribe. Master Gotama, the Brahmins prescribe this as the level of service towards a worker. Only a worker may serve a worker, for who else could serve a worker? That is the level of service towards a worker that the Brahmins prescribe. What does Master Gotama say about this? So here we have a Brahmin presenting their idea of service, and we see their idea of service is very caste-based. We've talked about the 4 castes last time already. So there are the Brahmins, the nobles, the merchants, and the workers. And obviously there's a very clear hierarchy. And the Brahmin view is that based on the hierarchy, service should be given. So based on where you're born, in which caste you're born into, you can serve others, or you have to serve others, depending on how you view this. And obviously, Brahmins believe that Brahmins are the highest caste. We have talked about this in a lot of detail the last 2 times that we had a look at another sutta. And so again, this is a very similar idea. Obviously, since they believe that Brahmins are the highest caste, all the other castes should serve the Brahmins, and also Brahmins can serve each other. So this is a very hierarchical view, and a view that is solely based on one's birth and one's status in society. And obviously, then Brahmins, since they are the highest, can be served by all the other castes and by Brahmins, by other Brahmins. In the view of the Brahmins, the nobles or the aristocracy, the Khatya caste, are the second highest. So they can be served by other nobles or by the 2 lower classes, the merchants and the workers. And then the workers can, and then the merchants can be served by other merchants and by workers, and obviously workers can only be served by workers. So very hierarchical. And obviously here they again have this view that giving service to others is very demeaning. It establishes you as a lower being. And so basically, it's not basically in the Brahmin view, it's something that a lower person gives to a higher person. And it also establishes a hierarchy in society. And now this Brahmin asks the Buddha what the Buddha thinks about this. And the Buddha says, well, Brahmin, has all the world authorized the Brahmins to prescribe these 4 levels of service? No, Master Gotama. Suppose, Brahmin, they were to force a cut of meat upon a poor, penniless, destitute man and tell him, good man, you must eat this meat and pay for it. So too, without the consent of those other recluses and Brahmins, the Brahmins nevertheless prescribe those 4 levels of service. So first of all, the Buddha asks, well, is this something that is generally acknowledged by all people in society, or especially by all religious or spiritual practitioners? So has all the world agreed to this? But obviously, not all the world has agreed to this. This is something that the Brahmins came up with by themselves, where they think that they are the best and they're at the top and everybody should serve them. And obviously, not everybody has agreed to this. And then the Buddha says, well, this is as though you want to force a piece of meat upon somebody who doesn't have any money, and then you tell him you have to eat the meat, and you also have to pay for it. So obviously that person is never going to pay for that because they simply don't have any money. So it's absolutely impossible for them to actually do that. And in the same way, you can think up random theories as much as you want, but you're never going to get other people to accept your theories. You can't force your random thoughts and your random theories on other people. In the same way that you can't force meat on somebody who is too poor to pay for it. You can't force somebody to pay for it if they simply don't have the money. It's entirely futile. And in the same way, it's entirely futile to push your theories on others and expect them to accept that. And so obviously the idea that other recluses and Brahmins should or shouldn't consent to your theory, that's just the idea that obviously recluses and Brahmins as spiritual practitioners were seen as people who were religious or moral authorities, and so they are the ones who should guide society in expected behaviors and so on. And so obviously, if all recluses and Brahmins agree on something, on, let's say, the basis of morality or sila or something, then obviously that is something that might be generally accepted in a society. But obviously, if there are quarrels between recluses and Brahmins, or between the spiritual and religious practitioners of a society, then generally this is not something that would be accepted by society at large, because the people who are the moral guides of the society don't agree on this. So, and then the Buddha goes on and explains his own view about giving service. And the Buddha says, I do not say, Brahmins, that all are to be served, nor do I say that none are to be served. For if, when serving someone, one becomes worse and not better because of that service, then I say that he should not be served. And if, when serving someone, one becomes better and not worse because of that service, then I say that he should be served. If they were to ask a noble thus, which of these should you serve, one in whose service you become worse and not better when serving him, or one in whose service you become better and not worse when serving him? Answering rightly, a noble would answer thus, I should not serve the one in whose service I become worse and not better when serving him. I should serve the one in whose service I become better and not worse when serving him. If they were to ask a Brahmin, or to ask a merchant, or to ask a worker the same question, answering rightly, a Brahmin, a merchant, or a worker would answer thus, I should not serve the one in whose service I become worse and not better when serving him. I should serve the one in whose service I become better and not worse when serving him. So the Buddha has an entirely different approach, an approach that is not hierarchical, or is not based on one's birth or one's caste or one's status in society. But the Buddha says, well, obviously not everybody should be served, but it's also not that nobody should be served. It depends on, if you give service to somebody, can you yourself have a benefit? Can you yourself become a better person as a result? Or do you get a worse person? If you become a worse person, obviously you shouldn't do that. That would be harming yourself. But if that person that you're serving is better than you, so you can learn from them and they can become your teacher, then obviously you should serve them, because that will be of benefit to yourself and that will help you to improve yourself and become a better person. So obviously, if we serve somebody, that person that is being served has some kind of benefit, because they get some service, whatever kind of service you're performing, basically. But the main benefit is for the person that is performing the service, because that person can learn something from the person they serve. If that person is a really good person, let's say an accomplished practitioner or a good teacher or a good role model, or just somebody who has made more commitment on the path or has more learning on the path, or is in some way has some good quality that we want to learn from. And so obviously by serving them, we can be around them, we can help them out, and we can observe the behavior, we can talk to them, we have access to them. And in that way, we can gain a huge benefit. And the benefit that we get from the service is actually much, much higher than the benefit that the person that is being served gets from us being there. So actually doing service to others, if we do it to the right people in the right way, is actually hugely more beneficial to ourselves than to the other person. So that thinking that we sometimes have that service is demeaning or it puts us down, and this resistance we have to doing that is actually just holding us back. It's actually stopping us from having that benefit that we could have if we were more open to doing service to good people. And like I remember when I was a layperson and I was visiting other monasteries, and sometimes when you stay in monasteries and you help out with the daily tasks, and you get to know the nuns or the monks, depending on where you're staying, much better because you're living together. Then obviously you have the opportunity to perform a lot of service for people. And I remember that I had huge benefit from being able to, for example, driving some Sangha members around to the various appointments, because then you get one-on-one time with them and you can really ask them about questions, or you can just see and observe their behavior. And I remember I was especially impressed one time, or actually several times, by a nun, and she was a very, very junior nun, just had been ordained for 1 year as a bhikkhuni at that time when I met her. But she was just so inspiring to me, and she had so much knowledge, and like she was really well trained, and she had so much knowledge, and she could answer so many of my questions. And it was so inspiring for me that I actually made a decision that I wanted to ordain in that place. And she was one of the main causes probably that gave me the final confidence that I really wanted to go forth. I had thought about going forth and I was quite serious, but then finally I think she was one of the last causes, or gave me the impulse to really finally make that decision. And only like 1 or 2 weeks after meeting her, I actually quit my job and I actually gave away all my worldly possessions and made that decision to finally go forth. So sometimes we can, if we give service to such people, that can be very, very beneficial in our life. And in that case, really, it shows us that the one who is giving the service is actually getting much more benefit than that nun. That nun only got, like, she got obviously a car ride to the place that she wanted to go to, but I got much more out of it because I actually changed my entire life after that. And obviously, when you stay in monasteries and you help the Sangha, then obviously, whether you make the decision to go forth or whether you just want to practice Dhamma, that will always be very helpful, because they can give you so much guidance, or they're just really good role models if they're more advanced on the path, and they can just give so much inspiration to our Dhamma practice. Obviously, this is not to say that everybody is only inspiring all the time. Obviously, still we need to be smart about it. And if we see things that go really wrong, then obviously we can't have blind faith in that. We still have to apply our own wisdom, and still sometimes we encounter bad people who practice Dhamma, so obviously then we need to keep away. But generally, when we spend time in monasteries or in Dhamma circles, we can meet a lot of good people and get a lot of inspiration from helping out and supporting them. So that was the Buddha's first reply. What we also see here is that when the Brahmin presents his idea of caste, he put the Brahmins at the top, then the nobles, then the merchants, and then the workers. Obviously, when the Buddha gives his reply, he puts the nobles at the top, and then the Brahmins, then the merchants, and then the workers. So this is something we consistently see in the suttas very often, that when the Brahmins talk about the idea of caste, they think they're the highest caste. When the nobles or the Kshatriyas, the aristocrats, talk about caste, then they believe that they are the highest caste and the Brahmins are below. So obviously at the time of the Buddha, the caste system wasn't quite fixed yet. It was still very fluid. And the full hierarchy between the castes hadn't properly developed yet. So, and then the Buddha goes on and he says, I do not say, Brahmin, that one is better because one is from an aristocratic family. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is from an aristocratic family. I do not say that one is better because one is of great beauty. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is of great beauty. I do not say that one is better because one is of great wealth. Nor do I say that one is worse because one is of great wealth. For here, Brahmin, one from an aristocratic family may kill living beings, take what is not given, misconduct himself in sensual pleasures, speak falsely, speak maliciously, speak harshly, gossip, be covetous, have a mind of ill will, and hold wrong view. Therefore, I do not say that one is better because one is from an aristocratic family. But also, Brahmin, one from an aristocratic family may abstain from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, from misconduct in sensual pleasures, from false speech, from malicious speech, from harsh speech, and from gossip. And he may be uncovetous, have a mind without ill will, and hold right view. Therefore, I do not say that one is worse because one is from an aristocratic family. Here, Brahmin, one of great beauty or one of great wealth, may kill living beings, and so on, the 10 unwholesome things, and hold wrong view. Therefore, I do not say that one is better because one is of great beauty or of great wealth, but one of great beauty or one of great wealth can also do the 10 wholesome things, abstain from killing living beings, and so on, and hold right view. And therefore, I do not say that one is worse because one is of great beauty or of great wealth. So then the Buddha gives a few examples of people that are usually being served by others and that are usually highly regarded in society. For example, somebody who is from an aristocratic family, usually such people have a lot of servants. Or somebody who is very beautiful, such people usually have a lot of admirers, and also admirers like to perform services for the person they admire. Or somebody who is of great wealth. Such people usually also have a lot of followers because if they have a lot of wealth, a lot of people want to have a share of their wealth. So these are typical people in society back then, and even as nowadays, nothing has changed. Such people usually have a lot of people who want to perform services for them. And the Buddha says, well, it really doesn't depend on your aristocratic family or on your beauty or on your wealth, whether or not you should be served. Some people who are aristocratic or wealthy or beautiful should be served and some shouldn't. And it depends on their morality, it depends on their conduct. And then the Buddha lists the usual 10 unwholesome deeds or the usual 10 wholesome deeds. And if somebody does the 10 unwholesome deeds, obviously they are not fit to be served, because if you serve them, then they will influence you and you also will go down the wrong track and do those unwholesome things. But if they do the 10 wholesome deeds, obviously they are good moral people, and so we might be able to learn something from them, and so they should be served. And I think we've talked about the 10 wholesome and unwholesome things already many times, so we don't have to go into detail. But these are basically wholesome or unwholesome actions by body, speech, and mind. The wholesome actions by body are not to kill or harm, not to steal, and not to misconduct ourselves in sensual pleasures. Then these are 3. Then 4 verbal wholesome actions: not to lie, not to speak maliciously, not to speak harshly, and not to gossip. And then, of course, the 3 mental wholesome things: being uncovetous, that means not being greedy, not having ill will in our mind, and also holding right view. So those are the 10 wholesome things, and obviously there are this is a gradual process, and we can always improve on this up until we are arahants. So probably many people are able to abstain from killing living beings and abstain from stealing, abstaining from the unwholesome verbal actions. So never to gossip, never to speak harshly, for example. That's already quite a challenge for many people. So if there's somebody who can do that, obviously we can learn from them. And then never to be greedy in our mind, never to have a trace of ill will, and always having right view. Obviously, that is even more difficult, those mental actions. So if somebody can do that, that means they're already quite advanced on the path. And so they can really be role models and teachers for many of us. And then whether or not they're from an aristocratic family, or whether or not they're beautiful, or whether or not they're wealthy, really doesn't matter. It depends on those qualities, those wholesome qualities. And then the Buddha says again, I do not say, Brahmin, that all are to be served, nor do I say that none are to be served. For if, when serving someone, one's faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom increase in his service, then I say that he should be served. So now the Buddha gives us 5 qualities that can develop if we give service to another person, if the other person is a good person. So this is, we can, like when we give service, or when we think about giving service to another person, we can check on those 5 qualities and see, if we give service, will these qualities actually increase? And if yes, then we should give that service. And if no, then it would be harmful to us, and we should not give that service. So the first one is faith, or inspiration. So sometimes also we have very, very high expectations of our teachers, or of people that we want to serve. So they have to be absolutely perfect. And if we are waiting for a teacher that is absolutely perfect, we're probably not ever going to find that person. So we are going to search our entire life, and in the end be disappointed. And one reason for this is that maybe there are many people out there that are more developed than us on the path, but not that many that have actually reached arahantship. But we can actually learn from people that are more advanced on the path than we are. They don't necessarily need to be arahants. And the other thing is that as long as we have defilements in our mind, it's very easy for us to misunderstand things and to criticize other people for faults that aren't actually faults. And as we know from the suttas, even the Buddha was criticized many times. Even though the Buddha is the most perfect, accomplished being in the world, even he was criticized because people have defilements in their minds, and people just like to criticize others, and anger is just present in people's minds. So fault finding is very easy to arise, even with somebody who is already perfected. And then, of course, there's always the possibility of misunderstandings. We might misinterpret a situation where actually the teacher or the monastic or the other, whatever layperson that we're serving, had wholesome intentions and wholesome motives, but we misinterpreted it and thought that they were acting out of greed or hatred or delusion. For example, one area where this happens very often with monastics, especially between monastics and lay people, is in areas that are covered by the Vinaya, so the monastic rules. So as you all know, most monastics, hopefully all, but probably there are some people who don't. Most monastics follow the rules laid down by the Buddha. And some lay people are not all that familiar with those rules, and so this can easily lead to misunderstandings. And it is very, very common for monastics, for example, to be criticized if they're not using money, because lay people feel that it's very demanding and very entitled, and causes a lot of issues for the lay people if the monastics don't use money, because that means that the lay people have to buy stuff for them. And of course, it is part of the monastic code for monastics not to use money. And so if lay people don't know that, this can very easily lead to misunderstandings. And many monastics have been criticized for this. Or, for example, monastics usually don't eat after noon. And it happens very frequently that they are criticized for this, for being demanding, to expect lay people to give dana before 12 o'clock or before 1 o'clock, depending on whether it is daylight savings time or not. So these kind of things, obviously, these are just misunderstandings. The monastics are not acting out of ill will, or they're not acting because they want to make it especially difficult for the lay people. It's just a misunderstanding that people don't know about monastic rules, for example. And I'm just mentioning this to show how easy it is for our mind to create negativity towards a teacher or towards another person, when obviously everybody has good intentions. And we don't realize that the other person has good intentions. We just assume the worst and assume that they are entitled, or that they are purposely trying to annoy us. So sometimes, it's good to be open-minded and not to immediately come to conclusions when it comes to judging other people. And also, what I was trying to say is that not every teacher has to be perfect. So sometimes there can be a person that has a quality that is really inspiring, and maybe a few qualities that are not that inspiring. So if that is the case, we can learn from the quality that is inspiring and just try to disregard the rest, unless the rest is like really unwholesome and fraudulent and deceitful and criminal and dangerous. Then obviously we shouldn't go near such a person. But if the person is generally an okay person and has one inspiring quality, then we can try to learn from that inspiring quality. So, for example, as the Buddha has given us here this list, if the person can increase our faith in the Buddha Dhamma, or our inspiration in the Buddha Dhamma, that is enough. That person doesn't also need to be very learned and doesn't need to be a jhana master and all the other qualities. If that person is just somebody who can increase our faith, that is enough. Or if that person is especially virtuous, really adheres, for example, to the monastic code, is a very moral person, for example. Let's say somebody who really cares about other living beings, really tries not to kill, not to harm. That can be very inspiring to us, and that can help us to also increase our own sila. For example, recently, one example that I saw, there was another monastic, and that monastic was really very careful not to hurt even the smallest insects. And so she was cleaning a place, and before she started cleaning, she would very carefully remove even every single spider, every single insect from that area, very carefully put them outside so that nothing happens to them while she is cleaning, so they don't get, for example, sucked into the vacuum cleaner or something. And obviously that takes a much longer time than if you just disregard all the small beings and you just start vacuuming and then you're done in 5 minutes. And so it's very easy for somebody to get angry and say, oh, it's so annoying, and it takes such a long time, and everything becomes so difficult. And so if you think like this, obviously you're just creating negativity. But the other way of thinking about this is, oh, it's so inspiring how she's so careful, how she's taking the first precept so seriously, and how she really tries not to harm even a single small being. So by thinking about things in the right way, we can also learn from people and not give into our own defilements of negativity and thinking in the wrong way about such people. Or maybe somebody is very learned and they have a huge amount of knowledge, let's say about the suttas, or let's say about Buddhist history, or anything else connected with Buddhism that we can learn from. So then that is a quality that we should focus on, and that is a quality that where we should get inspiration from. Or somebody is a very accomplished meditation teacher but doesn't have that much learning. So then we rejoice in that quality of them being a very deep meditator, and we don't criticize them for not being learned enough, for example. So not every teacher has to be perfect in every respect for them to be worthy of receiving service. obviously people are different and everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So, I think probably going to stop here for today, and because the topic of service is now finished for this sutta, and now they're turning to another topic in their discussion. So we might finish the rest of this discussion next time. And I will have a look at questions if there are any. And so feel free to post questions in the chat if you want to. And otherwise, we will just finish a bit early today. So I see a lot of people have checked into the live chat. Nice to see all of you. Many people have posted various emojis. Very good to see you all. Somebody has posted a question about Satipatthana meditation. So Satipatthana obviously has nothing to do with our topic today. So let's have a look at the question and answer it a bit briefly. What is the benefit of Satipatthana meditation? The way of taming the mind, Satipatthana way of mental purification will bring one ceaseless mind to finally cease thinking. So the benefit of Satipatthana meditation obviously is the development of the mind. Satipatthana can be used in various ways to develop samadhi or to develop insight or wisdom. And obviously there are a lot of techniques to do Satipatthana meditation with various meditation objects or various focuses or various areas to direct our mind to do various investigations and contemplations. So Satipatthana is very powerful, especially it is there, as the name says, to develop sati or mindfulness and then access the higher stages on the path. But yeah, it really is a bit off topic for today, so I'm not going to go into all the various techniques. And also it seems that you already know quite a bit about Satipatthana since you've provided quite a detailed explanation here. So I hope that answers your question. So I see a lot more people checking in. Good to see people checking in from all over the world. It's really nice to see you all. And there is a comment from Sud. And Sud, or it's actually a question from Sud without a question mark, so I thought it was a comment. So they say, if someone almost like a sotapanna, that means a stream enterer, if they follow the 10 wholesome actions perfectly. So, well, I think if they really, really perfectly follow the 10 wholesome actions, then they are very close to arahantship. Because remember, one of the wholesome actions also involve the mental development. There are 3 actions that are actually mental actions. So not to be greedy and not to have ill will and to have right view. Obviously, right view is created at stream entry. So a stream enterer can already fulfill that. But to have fully overcome all forms of ill will, that requires you to be a non-returner, and to have fully overcome all forms of greed, including the greed to the fine material and the immaterial realms, that requires you to be an arahant. So if you're absolutely perfect in the 10 wholesome actions, then that means you're an arahant. Obviously, you can already accomplish the 10 wholesome actions to a lesser degree on lower stages on the path. And even people who are not necessarily Buddhist can already accomplish many or most, if not all, of the 10 wholesome actions, or of the 7 wholesome actions that refer to the body and the speech. So I think many people who are good people, even if they're not necessarily Buddhist, would try to avoid killing, would try to avoid stealing, would try to avoid misconduct, and generally would try to avoid lying, would try to be kind and friendly towards other people with their speech. So these are practices that, whether or not you're Buddhist, many people try to do, and that also are promoted by various other religions. So it's a gradual process. Many good people try to take steps in order to accomplish these 10 wholesome actions. But if you really absolutely fully perfectly want to accomplish them, then you have to be an arahant. So and so has left another comment. They say, I guess we shouldn't feel bad then if we don't follow the 10 wholesome actions perfectly. Well, we shouldn't feel bad if we don't follow them perfectly. It just means we are not an arahant yet, but it also should give us some inspiration and show us that there is still way to go, and that we shouldn't rest content where we are now, but keep on practicing until we really fulfill them and until we have become arahants. And then Richard asks, there are no sanghas or monasteries in the island where I currently live. How can I be of service and improve my practice beyond this disadvantage? So I think there are many ways of associating with sanghas and monasteries nowadays that don't necessarily involve a physical presence. So there are many services that can be given to monasteries by doing stuff online. So, for example, helping to update a website, helping to edit Dhamma talks, helping with financial matters, for example, helping with admin tasks. So a lot of things can be done remotely nowadays, thanks to the internet. So that is obviously one thing to do. The other thing, some people, when they feel disappointed that there is no sangha close to them, have started organizing retreats at their place. They invite a teacher to come to their place, and so they organize a retreat. Let's say a 1 week retreat, and they invite a teacher. So the service that you give is to organize that retreat, to find a venue, find the people who want to attend, help the teacher to come, do these kind of things. So actually there are quite a few opportunities to provide service depending on your particular situation and your particular skill set also, to see what you can do. Then Celestino asks, the best teacher is the one that can read others' minds in order to use the right words for them to understand well. Or is it enough for a teacher to understand the various levels of understanding of people and use basic or advanced teachings accordingly? So obviously, the Buddha was able to read minds, and he could give the perfect teaching to everybody. But if this is our requirement for a teacher, we're going to search for a very long time before we find one. So most modern teachers are not able to read minds. But I forgot which famous Thai Ajahn, but there was a famous Thai Ajahn who said it's totally overrated. The mind reading thing is totally overrated, because you just need to observe a person for like 2 minutes and you already know what's on their mind. So teachers usually have a lot of experience with various kinds of people, and they also become very percipient because they're quite mindful, and so they don't necessarily need to read your mind in order to see what's going on with you. And just by observing your behavior, teachers can learn quite a lot about you already. And also, when you come to a teacher, describe your problem, it's they've usually heard it all before, so they know how to deal with this. So, well, mind reading is a little bit overrated, so don't waste your time spending years and years of your life trying to find a teacher that can read your mind. Just find a good teacher, and usually that would be very helpful to you already. So it seems that was the last question for today. So let's finish a little bit early today. I hope you enjoyed this sutta. I hope it gave you some inspiration and some opportunities to reflect on our own internal attitudes towards service. And yeah, I wish you a good rest of the day, a good week. And we will finish as usual, of course, with 3 sadhus. Feel free to join if you like. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So have a good week, and I will see you all next Tuesday.